Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Cox. I'm a member of the Net Capital team. Let's allow one moment for everyone to settle in. Thanks.
One second. Cool. Sweet.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome again. Today, I'm excited to welcome Evelyn Watters with VUniverse. As always, this company is actively raising capital on the Net Capital platform, and I've added a link to that in the chat. But it is netcapital.com/companies/VUniverse-Inc. Or you can go to netcapital.com and search VUniverse. As always, they're actively raising capital, and you can learn more information there. A few quick housekeeping items. Please do use the Q&A function built into Zoom. I know there's also a chat feature, but Q&A makes it so much easier for me to track all the questions as they come in and get to as many of them as possible. And of course, we want to keep this very interactive, so please do ask your questions. With all that being said, please join me in welcoming VUniverse to the stage. Come on in, Evelyn, excuse me. Tell us a little bit about what you're building with VUniverse.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, well, we're fired up. We're building a really great product. VUniverse is an app which helps you sort all your streaming services and actually finds you what is best for you to watch. COVID's been an interesting time because, so many people with so many streaming services have one of two complaints. First is that there's nothing to watch, which isn't true. And the other is that there's so much to watch, I can't decide on anything. And I don't want to make the wrong choice. So the abundance of choice leads to paralysis. So we have an app that solves for all of that, because the reality is there's more content that exists right now that you can see in 5 lifetimes that you'd be over the moon to watch. So it's just what lacked before was some entity like VUniverse to actually navigate that for you. And so that's what we're doing. And so we're solving a huge problem, and something that will deliver a lot of joy to your life, because there's like no more bad movie nights with a product like VUniverse.
Yep, absolutely. Tons of content. Definitely end up looking through every single option and then circling back to the usual suspects. But tell us, how big of a problem is this? And tell us a little bit about kind of what does it look like from the average streaming enthusiast standpoint?
How do you mean by from the average, what the problem that the consumer is facing?
Yes.
Yeah, well, actually, we did a customer survey to back up our problem solving. What we envisioned as the problem. We did a consumer survey, and we found that most consumers said that they would pay for an app that does what ours does, and they would actually pay a lot for it. And many said that it would save their marriages. So consumers indicated they would pay between $4.99 and $15.99 a month. Many consumers thought that, we do have competitors out there that actually you are the product. So they harvest your data and they market to you in ways that you actually wouldn't appreciate. So we protect your data. We protect your privacy. We serve to consumers, the content that you want to watch. It's not trying to force anything on you that isn't right for you. And so what it ends up, being is with consumers that have 3 or more services is huge TAM, 100 million consumers. So we have huge addressable market, and many of those consumers highly value their privacy, and our product meets that need.
Yeah, and I see on your offering page that it can take up 20 minutes or more to decide on what to watch. And I imagine that gets larger the more people are trying to decide on something to watch together. And I imagine a lot of the people on this call can relate to that. But you did mention, I think, something critically important about your differentiation, and that is the privacy protection. Why was that so critical from the very beginning to make sure that you're not exploiting people's data?
Because it's so done out there. People don't realize that just by the very act of signing up for something, companies know so much about you. And, does that genie go back in a bottle? To some extent it can, and you do need to be conscious of it. So we are very extremely conscious of it, because that's the world that we live in, because it may not be all consumers, but we're not looking for all consumers. We are looking for those consumers that value their privacy. And many consumers describe that, the companies that actually harvest their data is invasive, creepy, and it really is, you're right to be freaked out by that. You don't want to be giving yourself away, so we value the consumer's privacy.
Yeah, and for a reasonable price too. It seems like a
Absolutely,
reasonable
yeah.
trade-off. Before we dig into the revenue model and the pricing, tell us a little bit more about what this solution is. This is not just one streaming service recommending another program on that same streaming service. This is cross-platform. Tell me a little bit more about the VUniverse platform.
Absolutely. So basically, when the consumer signs up, they do let us know what services they already have, because you don't want a service that's sending you to a place and that is forcing you to sign up for another service, costing you more money. So basically, we ask consumers to let us know and tell us a little bit about you. So you're giving that data, and that data helps us, helps our algorithm feed and give you back the content that is right for you. So anyways, from that standpoint, it's just providing you with what you're after, and
Yeah, and then even what you do, they tell you the services you have, and recommend programming that you have access to for free. Does it also tell you about some programming that you might like that you would have to pay for if you want to add a separate service, or is it really kind of keeping you within what you already are paying for?
Well, to begin with, it does keep you in where the services you already have, because that is, for many people with 3 services, there's so much content available within those. So our product currently has data on 68,000 film titles and 158,000 streaming series. So we've got content in our database that we've actually already to serve to you that is on those top services. So there's so much out there. And ultimately it will recommend, because if it's, if BritBox is something that, you happen to be an Anglophile and there's so much content that, is right for you, we will end up recommending out of your service if it just, seems like it's a logical fit. And with that, you may sign up for BritBox and you might drop one of the 3 services that you currently have.
Yeah, so not only does it really help you find what you already have access to, those gems that you might have overlooked, but also might even expand the horizons if it makes sense based off of your viewing history and the data that we willingly share with you.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you talked about this algorithm. I know it's a personalized algorithm. Can you dig a little deeper into what that algorithm can do and how that helps the consumer?
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of it is based on tagging. So it's emotions, and it's different times of year you actually have different viewing habits. So all that goes into the algorithm that feeds content. There's certain times of year when you're more likely to be streaming a series than you would be watching a 90-minute movie. So all that is figured in, and there's many things that affect that, but the algorithm that we have currently is so superior to anything that's out there. We use it all the time, so we're already using our product. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know you added some of your hallmark features for a software like this, including creating and sharing watch lists. But what is this randomizer? That's pretty fun. What's going on with that feature?
The randomizer actually is phase 2. There's so many ideas that are part of this that we just bank them, and so that is just serving you random content, because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know, and if there is, people always describe themselves as a certain way, and they go, oh, I like action, I like drama, but they don't realize, because they can't put it into words, that they would be a fan of a great documentary. And there's so many great documentaries out there that it's mind-boggling. You could just be as entertained watching a documentary as you could be watching an action film, maybe more, and you learn something. So you learn something about yourself too by taking a chance, and then that would just give you something completely random, but that could be a gem off of somebody else's list that happened to match some of your emotional tags, and then it would get fed to you, and you would have a really rich, rewarding experience, I would say, by that random choice. And you might expand that and say, well, I can include best documentary or documentaries about, on my list of things that I want to watch. So yeah.
Very, very cool. And then also the kind of the watching alongside other people and the community building that come from that. That sounds like a really cool feature as well. Let's talk about some of the highlights that you've been able to accomplish already. So you raised $1 million through a safe already and closed successfully on that. The MVP and the beta are live both on Android and iOS, if I think I have that correctly. And then you already have registered users and customer wait list. Can you talk a little bit more about the traction you've been able to accomplish up to this point?
Sure. Well, last year, pre-COVID, we were chosen for an award, a finalist for an AI award for AI and machine learning at South by Southwest. So we were all packed up and ready to go, and then the cord got pulled. The plug got pulled on that, and so no South by Southwest, and then we met you through the Pepperdines. We were semifinalists in Pepperdine's Most Fundable Companies last year as well, and all this was during COVID. But throughout COVID, we learned, heading into COVID, we had a business model that was, was part SaaS, and we started with the, free paid, ad-supported content. And that's like a difference that, a pivot point for us was during COVID, we had switched that business model to focus on pure SaaS. And so we're to the point where we will actually start, we're completing our product to the point where we'll start having charging customers for the service. So anybody that was on our service prior to our September launch is free, grandfathered in, and the consumers, but also people that donate or like invest more than $1,000 via Net Capital are also grandfathered in as well. So, beginning with this rollout, we will be charging the subscription fee for our service, and we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's a good chance.
To pay, so.
Yeah, and that's good. That's a good transition point here. One more little detail: content from over 27 streaming services. Really, you talked about that database and library that you've been able to build out. That's a critical piece to the value add that you provide to your users. But let's switch over to that SaaS model. Can you tell us a little bit more about the revenue model? How much does it cost to use VUniverse?
Sure. We have an individual will sign up for $3.99 a month, but we have incentive pricing built in for that on top of it, which was really created to encourage consumers to sign up for like a year at a time. You saw Disney, the Verizon Disney deal, like that's pretty common in our industry. And a family model is $7.99. Again, that will be heavily discounted for, signing up for longer term, agreements with us. And that again allows 6 users. So, allowing for families.
Absolutely. And everybody is familiar with streaming. It really seems to touch a big piece of, especially the American demographic. How big is U.S. streaming market at this point?
Yeah, well, the TAM that we're after is 100 million consumers domestically. So that's pretty massive, and at 3%, we have a real lucrative, lucrative business model.
And it was wild to see that the market actually passed non-gaming apps, which is wild, especially because people are thinking about software as a service and applications and how ubiquitous those are. I realize now we took a deep dive and we didn't even cover your background or your team. Evelyn, who are you? Why are you so excited about this?
My background is film and advertising, so I'm like right where I need to be. I co-founded the Golden Trailer Awards, which is the award show for feature film movie trailers, which is wildly popular in the film industry and around the world, recognizing the best of movie trailers, nicknamed by the Wall Street Journal the Academy Awards for the short attention span. I work with my sister and co-founder, Monica Brady. She's a film director, film background. We have an excellent team. We've got Jude Burns, whose background is Department of Defense. She's our operations head, and John Burns, who is our financial officer. And we have William Kilgallen. He's head of cyber. And William Kilgallen's background is he was head of global threat for Twitter. Top cyber guy. He was head of cyber for GE.com. And Joey Adarkwa built our algorithm. Joey's background was Bank of America and MoviePass. And Ryan McManus works with us, and who was our chief product officer from our development stage. And he also came from MoviePass. And yeah, we have, just a super excellent team of innovators. Scott Weiland is UI UX, and Scott is absolutely brilliant, background at Publicis, RGA, working on clients such as Nike ID, Samsung, absolutely brilliant. So great team. Stephen Papa George heads our guerrilla marketing, and Stephen Papa George has a background, with Mirrorball, absolutely, brilliant guerrilla marketing. And for those of you who know guerrilla marketing, guerrilla marketers know how to, get people using products and get people, involved. And he's just an advertising genius. So yeah, we have an absolutely great team.
Yeah, stellar squad. And you mentioned that there are other players in the space. Can we talk about the competitive landscape and some of the differentiators that VUniverse have and that lead to kind of your value add over the competition?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm primarily, our Just Watch is, primary competitor, and they are a free service. And so they would be an entity that would, market to you and use your data, harvest your data. That being the primary difference, we actually check out our competitors' products. So, we know we have an amazing algorithm, and, that is core and essential to our product that, puts us, head and shoulders above our competition. So, and then protecting consumer privacy, that's just, essential to us. So when we do eventually expand, to Europe, we are GDPR compliant because it's part of our DNA.
No, that is great. Ready to scale, and that is a great place to be from a regulatory standpoint. And in terms of defensibility, I know that you have some trademarks. Can you tell me a little bit more about your intellectual property strategy and the protections you have in place or plan to have in place?
Yeah, well, so you can't actually patent for an algorithm, so it's all, the process patent. So with that, that is in progress actually. So it's one of those things too that it's the application of how you apply your algorithm is part of the quote unquote process. So that'll be filed for, but right now it's not really nobody can come and duplicate it. So, there's many ways, like you look at something like Coke, they have a secret formula. They don't necessarily patent that, because if they patent it, it would be published, but it's the secret formula. So, right now, we're great with where we are with our secret formula, but we will be filing for that process patent.
Got it. No, absolutely. The protections for algorithms are pretty unique. So it's great to hear more detail about that. Please continue to use Q&A. We do want to keep this as interactive as possible. Do ask your questions. We'll be getting to them really shortly. Kind of the most important question I think I have to ask here then is Space Jam, new Space Jam, old Space Jam. What did you think? Did you check it out yet?
I did not check it out. That hasn't been much time.
I know you're working hard, and I know that you're on the road right now. So I imagine you'll have to circle back for that question. No, I'm joking around. But in all seriousness, as streaming continues to evolve, we talked about the traction that you've been able to have already. Can you tell us, what do you view is the future of VUniverse? Where are you going? I know there are some features that you talked about will be on 2.0 and beyond. I love the idea of the decision. I think it's the decision tracker and the decision breaker. Can you talk about that feature and then other planned rollouts?
Well, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because we're really excited with the product itself. So that is the solve for consumers there is super exciting at its core, because that and helping people who struggle with this constantly. People have problems continually of that is their weekend. They work all week, and they want to make that time on the weekend count. And if you think of all the lost hours, that is wow, that's your one resource that you don't get back. So you got to protect that. And that's a big thing with us is because it started, the problem was something we were beating our heads against the wall for. And we had a concept 10 years before, and it was called Daily Trailer. And basically it was too soon because there wasn't the market there yet. There was Amazon and Netflix, but there was only 2 streaming services. So you really didn't have the problem that you have today, which is, it's a first world problem, but it's a problem no less. So.
Yeah, and bigger problem as more and more entrants enter the space. I know Paramount Plus is making a big push now, and and they have some pretty sizable assets. People are joking around about Space Jam. It felt like a large ad for Warner Brothers content throughout the whole movie. But I think you're right that it is becoming a bigger issue, first world issue, but very much an issue for consumers. So when you talked about the traction so far, you talked about that South by Southwest Top 5 Innovation Award, and I know, unfortunately, that we actually probably would have met there had it not been canceled. But can you tell us more about other kind of recognitions that you've been able to achieve, and other ones that you're kind of working on? I know you have a handful of accolades, including that Nasdaq TV Spot. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's just like one of those things where you don't actually even count it, because it's like there's just so much, publicity that you do on a regular basis that it just is core to, your life. Okay, you've got an interview, like half an hour before this, it was Las Vegas, morning coffee, and so it's like great, but it's like nonstop that there is interest in Hollywood, there's interest in streaming, and people are interested in things that affect their life and help them control their leisure time, and so there's a lot of interest in that. We have a lot of influencers. We've got some real cool things that as they roll out, absolutely genius. And it has to do with, there are influencers, people that want to share what they their favorites. And because we have the Hollywood ties in the background, and some are like prominent sports figures. One friend who's an astrologer, but she's a huge content consumer, and like people like to know interesting people, what they view and watch. And then so many people that we're tied to have huge influencer audiences, and our background's marketing, so that's where we come from. So that is the reaching consumers in innovative ways. I mean, that's our sweet spot. So, there's a lot in our future that puts our product front and center to a consumer audience in America. Yeah,
no, it's super interesting. And I think as you talk about, Hollywood is going through an interesting time right now. And especially because you talk about your award, but even, the more institutional award shows are having trouble drawing people to watch. I think about the Oscars. But where do you think the future of Hollywood is? Are the movie theaters going to continue to grow? Is it going to be shared with streaming? Is it going to be entirely streaming? Curious to hear your thoughts on the evolution of consuming content.
Well, it's in no one's interest for the theatrical business to go away completely. I mean, that's just, people need events. People still need to go to stadiums. People need sporting events. People need to view with their community at times, because they want that. My sister, Monica, who I work with, has to go to see F9 with other consumers, because for her, it's an event movie. We were talking earlier, like, you're not really going to go see a documentary in the theater, but you will go see, event movies or Bond. There's plenty of films like, and Maverick. I mean, that's one that people are super excited about. I personally am super excited about it, and it moved to November 19th this year. So, theatrical business will continue. However, I think that the growth that we're going to see is going to continue to be streaming, because there's so many little niche companies that can launch. That is going to add to the confusion, but it's also going to add to the raison d'etre for VUniverse, which is, that there's so much out there that it just becomes more and more, difficult to navigate. So that is, great for our future as well.
No, I think that's a really good point. The symbiotic relationship between the theaters and the streaming services is likely to continue. Here's a good time to remind our attendees that we are speaking with Evelyn Watters with VUniverse, and you can go directly to netcapital.com and learn more. from their offering page. And of course, you can invest at netcapital.com/companies/universe-inc. Shameless plug around halfway through our programming. Getting to some of the questions that are coming in here. Do you feel that the industry is ready for VUniverse? I imagine I know the answer to that, but where do you see that future going? A little bit of a spin on what I asked you earlier, but I'd love to dig in for the attendee.
Okay, so can you just read it again, because I want to get the second part of the question.
Yeah, where do you see the future of the industry going, the streaming industry?
Huge growth still, continued. It's so cheap by comparison of, paying $4.99 or $9.99 for a service. And if you look at that, like the price of a movie ticket in the, New York metro area is close to $20. In Tennessee, we're happen to be at the moment, is $12. So, when you compare that, the cost of streaming per month is cheap. And if you're a family, it's a good thing to, add another streaming service, because you're never lacking, so there's always something, when the kids is complaining, like, here's we got you Hulu, and oh great, it's got my show on it. So I think it's great. I think to us, the level of content that we see coming out is pretty extraordinary. There's just so much great programming out there. And from a global perspective, we see so many great movies and trailers coming out of different places of the world where you didn't have films that would export, like the Russian trailers, the Russian cinema, absolutely outstanding. China's got great content. See South America, Chile, like there's like so many countries now that are making films and streaming series even that export, and that is good for us, because we have exposure to all of this great new content. So I see great growth for streaming, and that means great growth for VUniverse.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting pieces is the hybrid model. My wife and I added Black Widow to our Disney Plus subscription, and to your point, the $30, even just with the two of us, was pretty reasonable compared to going to the theaters. Not a huge cost. So I think there is definitely interesting future releases coming directly to the quote unquote small screen, but of course living amongst the theaters as kind of a counterpart, not necessarily a deterrent from the theaters. Continuing with the questions here, over 50% of your maximum has been raised on net capital. Congratulations, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about your planned use of proceeds?
Absolutely. It's a great question. We are going to use 100% of the proceeds for completion of our product and reaching out to the consumer market for getting the word out. Yeah, and we're great at squeezing the life out of every nickel. It's just kind of my producer background, and our head of operations is absolutely fantastic. And we really, we're just really, I guess frugal is the right word, but we are hardwired to, never overspend, and we turn tremendous value. We create tremendous value for our investors.
And for the investors that are interested in using the product and telling people about it, I know the beta is in the services, but can you tell people, what is the easiest way to continue to engage with VUniverse as a consumer?
Yeah, I think they can just reach out directly, because we skip the line and we get, investors that are interested in checking us out. We get them on board immediately. Don't wait in line.
That's good to know. That's
yeah, just Evelyn at Golden Trailer, or Evelyn at VUniverse, or Jude at VUniverse.com, VUniverse.com.
Perfect. And then if you were to download the app, can they request access through that, or is it easier just straight through the email?
Yeah, I would say email, and then we would just connect them immediately.
Perfect. As the kind of content creation marketplace continues to evolve, do you plan to remain entirely SaaS, or is there a model where you bring in some of your Hollywood producer experience and actually start getting on the content creation side, or more involved in the creation in a different way, or is it the plan purely SaaS ongoing?
Yeah, we have a lot of tricks up our sleeve, but it would never be to compete with the content that's already out there, or the streams that are already out there. We actually see, like, where that is done, like for example, Apple, that doesn't work, because what they end up doing is the bias that's there is taking consumers and pushing them in the direction of the Apple content, just to use an example. However, that's bias that we don't think is fair to the consumer. So when people, talk about us and in our product is like, yes, we're biased, but we're biased for you. So everybody has their bias, which is their preferences. And it's not wrong to have those. That's what makes you you. And everybody's preferences are unique. So our algorithm will take what is unique to you and give you back more of what, is right for you, spot on. That is in the future of stuff that you haven't seen. So, that's us, but we're not gonna compete with content or with any of the streaming services that are out there. We would never do that.
Yeah, that's good to know. Good question. But yeah, purely focused on supporting in your SaaS model, not through content generation or creation. Yeah, please continue to ask those questions. They're great questions coming in so far. Evelyn, when you spoke with Nasdaq TV, you talked about the effects of the streaming wars. Can you tell the people who didn't see that conversation what you covered on that interview?
Well, the effects of the streaming wars are good for the consumers. So what you'll experience is experience competition and pricing from these companies trying to vie for your business. You're going to see better product. Competition keeps people on their toes. So the effect of the streaming wars is great for the consumer, and it's also great for us too, because obviously the more services you have, the more the paralysis of choice occurs, which has been verified not only by our own survey but other surveys like Deloitte. All this is all verifiable. That just for consumers, but then again, great problems to have is if you are struggling for something to watch. These are good problems. So it's still good to solve for them, but definitely very real.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the milestones that you want to reach as you continue to grow this business? I know you have some projections on your offering page, but if you talk about in terms of user growth and monthly recurring revenue, what are some of those milestone goals down the line?
Yeah, our milestones are, the rolling out of the first paid customer is a big one, a good one. And then we hit the 100,000 mark, 100,000 users. So it's kind of there, the 100, the 500, the million, and we hit profitability at, about 330,000 consumers. So, getting the business profitable as quick as possible. We don't, the 250 that we're raising on net capital is part of a 3 million raise. But we wanted to move 250 up because we knew that 250 was going to get our product to market. So that's why it was essential. So with that in hand, which we expect to close this in August. Once that's in, we will continue on with the rest of the 2.75 million for the seed round that we're doing right now. And we don't expect to raise again. So that should be sufficient for us that we see to have this product out there. And, we got a lot of partners that are, waiting for it. So, it's going to be good.
Wow, that's great. And then you alluded to the survey that you ran. Over 1,000 customers replied, and that was back in September of 2020. There was some really good data in there. I'm not sure if you have it in front of you, but I'd love to walk through it kind of piece by piece. But the first one is that 86% of those surveyed said they subscribe to non-gaming paid apps. Well, why is that so significant? The non-gaming paid apps piece of that high of a percentage?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty staggering stat. So that was like
Yeah.
one of the most surprising ones even for us, because once you took gaming out of the picture, then we thought the numbers would be down around 50-60%. But the fact that it's up so high, that just speaks volumes. Because
it really does. I remember a period of time where as soon as you saw that the app was 99 cents, that meant it wasn't for me. That seems like those times have long since passed. 86% a non-gaming paid app. That is super surprising to me.
It's a great value though. I mean, like we're a great value, and so it's almost a no-brainer. And sometimes you got to realize your own you have to get over your own bias of I would think oh, I would spend over $9.99 for this, but then if consumers are telling you oh, I would spend more, you're like, okay, good, then we're in a good spot. And we're also in a good spot that we've planned for the discount, because we know as consumers we're also incentivized to jump in when when there's something that is that enticing, that you're gonna be all right, I can save, I can save money and I can lock into this great service for a year, I'll do it,
Yeah, no, I think that's I love when people do these types of consumer surveys, good sample size, and you get some really good insights. I think a less surprising data point that came out of your survey, 64% say they've spent 20 minutes or more finding what to watch. That's everybody. That's 100%, right? Some people were lying there.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's good. I mean, because people can also get technical, like, oh, I spend more than that, or, well, I just give up and I walk away. I mean, because you're going to have other, answers in there. But yeah, I mean, again, that's a heavy, indicator that we're on the right track.
And then the two last pieces I think are the most important results from your survey. 2/3, 66%, would pay for an app like ours that protects privacy. And I know privacy was integral to your goal. Were you surprised by that data point, or was that pretty much in line with what you expected?
Well, there was another, there's another huge national consumer brand that had done a pretty massive survey. Can't say who they are because I'm under NDA, but did a massive survey in the millions, and they found that was indicated as well. So heading into it, we had to have our own data. So I wasn't surprised, but again, it's a strong number and it's a strong indicator that we are absolutely on the right track.
Yeah, and the last, I think, most important data point that you pulled out, 75% said that they would pay between $1.99 and $4.99 per month for this service. That's about as on the nose for what you want to hear as the proprietor of VUniverse that you can get. How excited were you for that data point?
Yeah, 75%. I mean, that's huge. And again, many people had said more, which is crazy because, who would do that? But, so I think that is a great indicator for us in our future, because there is always that, question out there is like, are people going to go for the free model? No, not when it concerns their leisure time, and they are willing to pay for that. So absolutely.
I'm sorry, kind of look at the smaller print here on the problem section of your offering page, and I think this is the piece with 100 million persons that were 18 and up that were asked, and that's the part that we're saying that they spend $53 on average for streaming. Did you see that? Was that something that you expected, or is that higher or lower than you expected?
Actually, I think it's probably not taking everything into consideration, actually. So I'd say it's lower, because when you really start adding up what you're paying for service-wise on a monthly basis, many people don't realize, and it's funny too, because sometimes, some of the investors we pitch, they go, after seeing this, I went and checked my bills and I realized I was paying for Netflix 3 different subscriptions in 1 month. And they're like, I didn't know that, it's just like, you don't realize those little leaks out of your account. And that money adds up, and and there's those that even haven't pulled the plug on cable, so those will be some more big numbers. So
no, that's a really good point, and you're right, because that's only streaming services and video on demand. That's not factoring in, I mean, people upgraded to higher speed internet to support this type of streaming. There are those that you mentioned that are still in areas where they're just bundled together with other services with massive fees. So I think there's a lot of national attention to, especially internet service providers as a potential monopoly, but other providers in the space. I think as people start digging into their spending habits, I think you're right. That $53 mark might be on the lower end.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. But it's what they answered. So I mean, I think that again is a good indicator for there's a lot of money out there. People put a lot of money towards improving their leisure time.
Yeah, and that's good for VUniverse. There were 3 other pieces that came out from this larger national survey. I did not realize this. I think everybody knows of a handful of the bigger players, but I didn't realize that there were over 100 different options for different streaming services of all types. I think of there's like even Turner Broadcasting has some of the classics. There really are a lot of options out there, and a lot of people have access to a bunch of them.
Yeah, well, actually, the number I've heard for the last few years actually is over 300. But you get past 100 and you really can't name them because they're so obscure. But they do just keep coming. So it's again, and sometimes they merge and they sell their libraries, and it is. But we track all that. So that's the thing, is we track all that. We have an API on so many various movies and the top streaming services. So we are good in that department. But, you know, it does show, again, the need for our product and our service.
Definitely. And then the last piece, because we already discussed the time that it takes to determine what they're going to watch. But on average, they maintain 3 or more subscriptions with access to thousands of titles. So it really kind of ties in together where without having that one-stop shop, you're opening one, you're looking through it, you're closing it, you're opening one, you're looking through it, and you're closing it until you either find something, flip a coin, move on to the next thing, whatever you have. But people have a lot of options out there.
But also think about it when once you're like in Netflix, like Netflix used to have a good algorithm, but you know, then over the years it became more like Netflix's algorithm was trying to keep you within the Netflix universe. They don't want you to go elsewhere. So the fact that we can, you know, cover across all your different, you know, the various subscriptions, that really helps serve you. And you know, Netflix isn't wrong to do that. Netflix is going to have to, you know, serve their own business model and their own bottom line and grow as well. So you need the friend of the consumer, and that is VUniverse. So we're on the side of the consumer.
Love that. Love to have you on our side. As we continue towards the close here, I am going to give you a little bit of a heads up. I'm going to end with asking you about a closing remark. And those closing remarks would be why now is the perfect time to go to netcapital.com and invest in VUniverse. Of course, I know you've alluded to a handful of them. You talked about potentially not raising capital again, where you are strategically, and you have the capital building out the product already because you've raised, you know, on platforms successfully. So we're going to kind of give you a heads up that that's coming. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to bring us home with that. But before we get there, you know, so one of the pieces I didn't understand about streaming was that, of course, the services pay to have access to that content, and then they basically bundle it, clean it up, and then have a really good distribution channel to the consumer. But they pay different prices for different content. And my understanding is that can impact the algorithm's recommendation engine. They might be more inclined to recommend a less expensive digital asset than a more expensive digital asset to show. And that was something that I didn't realize. Is there, and I imagine your algorithm, because it doesn't really affect your business model, it's agnostic to the content for the provider.
Well, it has to be, and that's what it is. Because should it matter to you? Should you be relegated to if Hulu has to pay, you know, with their various deals, if they have to pay more for some content, so they want to push you towards cheaper content? That should not be the case. Just for their own bottom line, it should be all about your experience. So of course we're agnostic. We are going to serve you what is best for you, because that's what we do. That's our core. That's our business model. Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. And it's wild, even the device manufacturers are getting in the place, whether you have Roku or Apple TV. I know when I go to the Apple TV section, when I'm looking for content, it will never recommend Netflix content. Even if I've been previously watching it, the recently watched section never has Netflix content on, which I think is pretty unfortunate in terms of, like you said, in being on the side of the consumer. It doesn't feel that way there.
Right. And sometimes it makes you scratch your head, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm a fan of this series. The new one came out and you don't even direct me to watch it. And you know that I'm a crazy fan for this. Yeah, sometimes it is mind boggling, like how they seem to go backward sometimes. So, you know, it's crazy.
Well, so grateful to have a champion of the consumer on the line here, doing it the right way. Last piece before we go to that comment that I mentioned. Will there be an opportunity for these content creators or the streaming services themselves to offer sponsored content, even if it's clearly displayed, or is the plan to avoid sponsored content altogether?
Yeah, our plan is to avoid sponsored content, because we think that leads to a bias that is, you know, in direct conflict with our business model. However, there are some innovative ways that we think consumers would be approving of, and that don't, you know, conflict with our underlying core values. So and when we have those, we will, you know, present them to the consumer. And it's just, you know, part of our second phase rollout, because you can't, you know, roll everything out at once, but you know, there are ways to do that don't, you know, conflict with our core values.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. But it's so nice to hear your North Star is shining brightly, guiding you all the way through your decision making. I think that's something that investors will be very happy to know, potential investors and existing investors. Okay, that brings us to the finale here. Closing remarks. Oh, actually, before we do that, friendly reminder, as always, you can go directly to netcapital.com and invest in VUniverse, or you can go to the link that I added into chat. That's netcapital.com/companies/VUniverse-Inc. And I'm going to do these closing remarks. As always, this has been recorded, and I will add a link to the chat to Net Capital's YouTube account. If you missed anything, or if you want to share that with somebody that you think would be interested in learning more and potentially investing. So giving you a heads up now, but back to what we were starting with, the closing remarks. Evelyn, why is now the perfect time to go to netcapital.com and invest in VUniverse?
Because you got to get in while you can. You know, we've got plenty of investors that we're waiting for our final push, and once we push, we will close. So yeah, I would get in while you can, and we'll close by, our goal is to close by August 6th.
And we've seen some large investors come in. You are actually, this would be a good piece to add in. You do have backing from institutional capital as well. You believe in the community component of Net Capital, but there is no lack of interest from the institutional players in the space. And I know that for a fact. Is there any more details you could share around that you're comfortable adding?
Well, the thing is, so early on, like we love the idea of the crowdfunding, but it would mess up our cap tables, so we couldn't go there. So we did a safe, and we did the million, and we raised it, and we closed it. And then we met you because when I read your email, I was like, not interested. And then we met the charming and eloquent Eric. And when Eric explained it, we're like, wow, because it does mean a lot to us that consumers are out using our product and there are investors. Because how often do you hear it? Oh, I wish I got in on Uber. Yeah, well, here's the crazy entrepreneurs that are coming to you, and you actually have a chance to invest. And when I signed up for my own account, and it was easier for me to put money into than my Robinhood account, I was like, wow, these guys got their stuff together. I'm really excited. And then the fact that it goes out to your base, and you're building this brilliant base of people that are those people that wanted to get in early on Uber or Airbnb, and they're doing it via Net Capital. Net Capital is the future. Like, our operations officer's like, you got to stop singing about Net Capital, because I'm like, no, but they're exciting and we're part of it. And they're absolutely great. And it is the future, because you guys came up with a brilliant business model, and like, you also have your legal teams. You guys are audited, quarterly, and you guys are on it. That what a brilliant way to partner, with a company like Net Capital that is so on the leading edge of what financing looks like tomorrow. So we love doing the pitches. That's great. We do. But what if you're not like connected to the right person that you're supposed to be pitching? Well, Net Capital has a bigger net, so it's casting out to more people that even if they invest $1,000. Then they're using their product, and they know that they're a genius because they were on things early, and they could do it via Net Capital. It's absolutely brilliant. And that was why we were so excited just to be able to do that, because you start out you're safe, and you have to have friends and family, and you have a minimum, and that's great. But this was such a better idea, such a better way to go. And it lets people come in at their own comfort level. So even investors at 99.60, can come in and buy shares. And they're in. Those are our investors. And people can also come in with $100,000, and they're in, and they're our investors. And that's absolutely brilliant. And another very interesting thing is, so many investors that we know don't want to have money in the markets right now. The market's pretty overblown. Ask anybody. So it's really brilliant to have cash investing in the entrepreneurs, which is investing in America. And that's investing in the motor that drives this country. And you can invest in that. And it's like, it's it's just, you're giving me goosebumps, because it's such a great time to be investing in entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is alive and well. And no government's going to keep us down. So we're still going to push through, and we're going to still create great products. And if people are stuck at home, they're still going to be streaming. And it's absolutely a great time for streaming. So much content, and so much content, because we're on the cutting edge of all of it. We see all of it. And there's so much content that came out during COVID. Yeah, sure, there's a lot of documentaries, but nothing stopped. And it's just the perfect time. It's the perfect time for our business, and it's the perfect time for our launch. It could not be better. Our future is so bright.
That warms my heart. I promise I had no influence on that spiel. That was all Evelyn. But I do appreciate you sharing the good word of Net Capital. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I've been excited to see the success that you've had, and you will, in my opinion, continue to have. So very, very excited for you joining us. Thank you so much. for that, and for telling all of our attendees about VUniverse and the opportunity that you're providing them in the digital content space. With that being said, that is the end of our scheduled programming. I just added a link to Net Capital's YouTube channel where you can go ahead and review anything that you might have missed, and please do share this generally. As Evelyn mentioned, community is critically important to Net Capital and to the VUniverse team. So we do want to continue to strengthen our community of investors. So please go ahead and visit our YouTube channel, visit netcapital.com, review the offering pages, and if you are so inclined, feel free to hit that invest button. Thank you so much, Evelyn. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. I'm so glad that we met the 9 Most Fundable Companies competition. I know it's coming up again this year, and I know we will certainly be there, and I hope to meet you again in person soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you so much to the attendees for coming in. Thank you for your great questions. Please continue to keep track of other Q&As that are coming up. But with all that being said, everybody, please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks again, Evelyn.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Bye now.
All right, cool. Take care. Thank you.